Hey everybody, I'm back, and I'm sure most of you are wondering, why are we staring at a living room floor full of parachute cord? And that's a good question. And Sam, sitting on the couch doing her nails right now, is probably asking the same thing in a much bitter way, giving me a dirty look. Anyway, I promise to have this cleaned up real fast, so let me get to it. I've done a lot of handle wraps on mainly fixed blade knives and other pieces of equipment with parachute cord, working primarily with these tactile type colors, but we're going to talk about some of the other ones too in a minute. But I've always wondered, ever since I started doing some custom knife work, what about using paracord in a different way, ways that people haven't done already or stuff we haven't seen. On a side note, I've also seen a lot of videos online about homemade micarta and different techniques to do that and different materials to use. But what I've been thinking about and what I've been wondering how to pull off is, can you do a micarta made out of parachute cord? And that's what I'm going to prove successful or not. I've looked and looked and looked, haven't found any videos, any information about it, but I've been playing with some ideas and I think I've come up with a way to do it. So why are there three knives out in the middle of there? You've got the Benchmade Contigo, Spyderco Endura, and then a Strider SMF, just to give you an idea of the sheer size of this ridiculous pile of P-cord. I have a lot of it. I have a previous video about how to make different things out of parachute cord, and I'll probably link right around the bottom here somewhere about it. But anyway, you know, I mentioned that video that you can have all sorts of different colors and patterns and stuff, and you can see we've got the standard tactical stuff from sage green, some OD green up here, there's black, there we go, black in the corner, you know, coyote brown, desert sand, all sorts of the regular military stuff. And then, you know, if you look hard enough, you can find just about anything. Got some neon pink, some hot pink, different kinds of blues, reds, different camouflage colors. Here's an orange and black tiger stripe. That's the colors for the local high school team here, so that's kind of a cool one to have. All sorts of different patterns. All you got to do is hunt it down. And I'll actually put a link at the end of this video of two of the places where I get parachute cord. The reason I have all this stuff is because when we're deployed, we tend to make a lot of different things out of it, make bracelets for the families back home and just little items. So it's nice to be able to have all these different colors. You know, a young daughter would probably like something from Daddy made of the pink rather than the, you know, OD green, for example. But anyway, I have all my supplies assembled for this project. I'm going to cut over there to my little workstation and we'll take a look at everything. All right, I've assembled all the items that I think I'm going to need based on the other videos I've seen. Not only is this my first time making a parachute cord micarta, it's my first time making micarta ever. And I promise that once I get started on the process, I'll have the camera kind of stationary, not handheld, just looking at the workstation. So to start with, I have a little mold, a jig I made out of just some lumber from the lumber yard. I have the mold that everything's going to fit into, and then the block that goes on the top to press down into it, and then wax paper to keep it all from getting stuck. Some just plain old plastic drop cloth so that we don't get resin everywhere, thereby infuriating Sam and getting me yelled at for days and days and days. 3M fiberglass resin, which is the basis for this whole thing, and then the liquid hardener, which actually comes with the resin. I got this at Lowe's or Home Depot, I can't really remember. It wasn't very expensive at all. You can also buy additional packages of this liquid hardener if you need it for the resin you've got. Little 1 quart mixing cup, just disposable type, 99 cents at Walmart. I've got a couple clamps to hold this thing all together, some disposable gloves to save my hands from getting all gooey, and then got just a couple scrap pieces of micarta and G10 lying around to do mixing and everything. To save some time, I cut the strips of paracord that we're going to need, and through this process I'll talk it out a little bit, but what we're doing is taking these strips. I've already kind of prepped these pieces, which you would need to do if you're doing this yourself. P-cord, as everybody knows, comes a big round cord. Well, not big, but bigger than what we're working with the 7 inner layers there. So in order to get this to work, I stripped out the inner layers, soaked these in very, very hot water for a little while, and then pressed them between actually 2 big sheets of G10 that I then clamped together. And that's something you have to do. So I did that step ahead of time just to save the time from doing this. Now, when this is all said and done, you're going to need 3 or 4 layers of the actual P-cord to produce a workable block of micarta to make a handle with. I don't know how big it's going to end up right now. This is I want to say a 1/8 or 3/16. No, this is a 1/8 inch piece of G10. And you can see the width of the P-cord compared to the G10. So 2 or 3 or 4 maybe even layers of this are what it's going to take, and this is going to help measure out exactly the width that we need. And of course I'm going to alternate it between the coyote brown and the sage green to have a nice pattern when you grind into it. So I'm going to set the camera up so I can actually do all the work and still have it film, and we'll see how this works out. This is going to be a cool experiment for everybody. So this 3M fiberglass resin that I said comes with the hardener. The ratio here is for every ounce of resin, it's going to be 10 drops. And to do enough, because we're going to have to basically soak all the paracord in the resin, we're going to have to do about 8 ounces here of resin. So that's going to be a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-measure out the 80 drops of the liquid hardener, have it ready. I'm going to dump the resin in there, mix it all up, and then I don't know what the drying time on this is, but we got to work pretty fast to get everything coated and laid in that little trough pretty fast. I measured out the 80 drops. It doesn't look like that much, but you want to put this stuff in something non-plastic. All this stuff together is combustible, and it's an oxidizer, which means it gets really, really hot when you use it. So if you're going to use any kind of container to hold this in, make sure you clean it out really good before you put the stuff in there, just so there's no foreign bodies or nothing for it to interact with. I used a shot glass made out of an old 20mm shell casing. And if you don't have a shot glass made out of a 20mm shell casing, get one, because it's pretty handy for lots of different things. But I'm going to measure out the resin now and mix it all together and then get started on the actual project. Alright, another thing I forgot to mention about this stuff is it stinks. So make sure that when you're doing this, you do it in a pretty well ventilated area. And I've got a ceiling fan going and 2 windows open, so that's good. I'm going to start layering the green first. So I've got everything mixed, and what I'm doing is just dipping the strings in there and getting them good and coated with the resin, which is not getting hot yet. I don't know, some reason I have a nasty feeling I did not use enough of the hardener. It just doesn't seem like that was a good amount, but you cannot possibly coat too much when using this stuff. You need these strings to be good and coated with it for them all to stick properly and to set properly. One of the things that makes this more of a challenge than doing regular micarta is that you've got to get these strings laid pretty much perfectly aligned with each other in order for everything to fit correctly, as opposed to just laying a strip of fabric in there. So you do need to work fairly quickly before this stuff starts to set up and get too tacky to work with. But you also want to take just enough time to make sure everything's laid nice and even. The resin is now just starting to get a little bit warm. So that tells me that I have in fact mixed the right amounts of stuff, because the chemical reactions are starting to happen. That's going to end up with this being a super hard kind of polymer finish when it's all done, which is cool. Alright, so I'm not going to fill this entire channel. Originally I had planned a smaller mold, and I didn't cut enough strips to do 2 layers of each color, filling that entire channel. Alright, now the resin is starting to get quite a bit tackier and harder to work with, which is good, because it means, like I said before, that it's going to set properly, but I may have to start over with a new batch of resin and everything. Doesn't matter if you spill some excess in here. More resin is actually better than not enough, so don't worry about having too much. I'm kind of squeegeeing the pieces off between my fingers back into the bucket before I lay them down, just so I don't have a whole lot of stuff dripping all over the place as I'm working. You can see I'm being really careful to make sure that all the pieces are lined up correctly once they're inside the mold here. Alright, I think the planning was a little bit too ambitious. This resin is starting to cure and gel up right now. I don't know if we're going to get the full second layer of coyote brown on there. In fact, I'm sure we're not. So what I'm going to do, definitely turning to gel, and it's impossible to get the rest of the strings out really nicely. So lesson number 1 is work in smaller batches, but I think we're going to call this good right now, and we're going to actually get it all wrapped up and ready to set. So, been using these knives to just hold the wax paper in place. Just going to fold this over like so. Take the second piece of wood and just slip it on top of everything. Now that that's all wrapped up, take our clamps, clamp this thing together. Fantastic. I got resin on one of my favorite t-shirts. I have to throw that right in the wash with some really hot water, see if it even comes out. So another lesson learned, wear crap you don't mind losing when you're doing a project like this. Alright, just a quick update. About an hour into the curing process, and I don't know if you can see in there the resin inside the wax paper, but it has become fairly hard. Reading the package, I realized that this is actually technically totally cured in 2 hours. I'm still going to give it 24 hours to make sure that we've got everything good and tight in there, but after just an hour, you see that little bit of P-cord and resin coming out. It's pretty solid already. So the 2-hour cure time is up, and I'm going to take this out of the mold. I'm still going to let it sit. I'm not going to mess with it. I just want to get a sense of how it's coming. And it looks pretty flat and solid on the bottom. Looks pretty good on the top. As predicted, didn't get that thick a piece without that extra layer, but you know, lesson learned. And it actually looks pretty solid. It's a little darker than I wanted, but you know, as I sand off the top layer and start carving into it, that will probably improve. But if you look at the side view, and I think you can see it in this light, you can definitely see the coyote brown layer inside of the sage green layer, which is pretty cool. And you know, this resin, I didn't realize it has kind of an opaque-ish tint to it. Next time I'll just find one that dries transparent. But next up, I'll go ahead and cut into this and we'll take a look at what it looks like. So fast forwarding ahead, I went and made another casting. This time I filled up that mold completely. It took exactly 18 strips of parachute cord lined up to fill that mold completely, and the results here are a lot better than the results I got when I just did a few layers. Because it was able to evenly fill out the mold, everything got compressed to a nice even width, and it's kind of hard to see right here. This resin, again, it's got that yellowish color that I'm not so happy with. And just to see as an experiment, I did another mold where I used casting resin. This is the kind I actually used. This would be used if you have a mold and you want to make duplicate parts, say for, I don't know, models, or you know, you do some kind of decorative work. But anyway, this is just a two-part, you know, A and B, sort of like an epoxy kind of, and you mix it up. The advantage it has is it's crystal clear when it dries. So I did another rendition using this clear resin. It's a little softer, a little bit more give and take, and I think that might be kind of nice for handle scales because it might give you a little softer feel to it. But the big difference with this one, I did 2 layers of each the brown and the green, whereas this one I did alternating. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Alternating brown, green. So just to wrap this all up, we're going to make some scales out of some of this micarta we just made. I'm going to work with the clear acrylic that I used rather than the standard fiberglass resin, just because I like the fact that it came out crystal clear and that I had stacked the P-cord in the 1-2-1-2 layer instead of just 2 big thick layers. So I think it's going to look pretty nice. For the test bed, I'm going to use a knife I have just laying around that's pretty cheap. It's a Boker Magnum. It's called the Bulldog, I think. I can't really remember, to tell you the truth, but it's just a big clunky knife, and it's pretty cheaply made, and it's nothing special. But the thing is, it's got these nice, big, wide, long scales, so it'll really show off the work that we're doing with this. So I'm going to go ahead and whip up these scales real quick and then come back and wrap this all up. Okay, and here we are with the semi-finished P-cord micarta handle. It actually came out really well. Number one, I know this thing looks very rough, and it looks very rough because there's another couple steps I would put it through if I was going to finish this as an actual knife handle. The other thing is, I realized when cutting through here and sanding and everything, how really hard to work with that acrylic epoxy compound was. It's really like a very hard rubber almost. So, you know, you can imagine sanding it, just imagine sanding rubber, and the trouble you have is it heats up and gets sticky and coats the sanding drum, and it was not very easy to work with at all. So I think the good lesson learned there was always work with the actual fiberglass resin. But anyway, I mean, the results are pretty good, and you can see the lighting here is not great. I've spent the last 10 minutes just trying to adjust lighting to see if I could get this to show better, but I can't. But you can very clearly see that just like layered G10 or other micartas, you get the difference in the colors very nicely. Over here you can see the brown and the green. Now, these colors are the same ones that this bracelet is made of. So another thing is, be prepared that the colors will come out quite a bit darker than you intended them to be if they was just plain old paracord. And that's like any other fabric or anything. You get wet, it gets dark. There's nothing you can do about it. So, you know, one workaround might be to use lighter colors from the outset. But what I would do here from this point on is I'd go ahead and start coating this. Now, I gave it just a very thin coat of oil just to kind of smooth out the finish look on it a little bit. If I hold it up close, you can see it's still very raggedy because all those fibers are coming out. So what you would do, what I've learned from other videos, is take super glue and spread super glue all around it and sand it until finally all these fibers are just, you know, it's just a flat, even surface. But this being just a test run and me wanting to show kind of, you know, how it comes out and what it looks like, it's good enough for that. So I'm going to call it a successful test. You know, it obviously needs some refinement or whatever, but I really do like the way it looks. Now, I've only done one side of this for two reasons. Number one, again, I just wanted to finish this video and get it out there, but also, I don't know what's up with this Boker. I did everything I could possibly think of to get these screws off. I heated it up. I, you know, used WD-40. I used gun oil. I even cut into the screws when they got stripped using the hex drivers to try to use just like regular flathead and Phillips head screwdrivers. These things were not coming out, and I was not that invested in this cheap old knife to do that. So what I might do is finally get these things off, give this whole thing a set of G10 scales, or maybe even just make a new set of the P-cord and Micarta and work with it. But, I mean, I wish that you could really see how well it came out. It really does look nice. The color combination is good. It's very clear, the delineation between the two. And I think that if I took the time to actually finish this appropriately with the, you know, the coating and sanding and coating and sanding, this would be a really, really nice finish. And the really cool thing is, since you can use whatever colors of P-cord you want, you can have almost, you know, unlimited choices. Almost unlimited choices. One of the reasons that I like Micarta handles as opposed to G10 handles is that there's a certain feel you get with Micarta because it is based on fabric, be it cotton, nylon, burlap, whatever it is. So you always do sort of have a little bit of that feel, and it's a grippy feel. It's a little bit, it's not as slick, not as engineered feeling as the G10. Maybe in the future I'll produce a really well finished one and video that too. But anyway, there we go. Parachute cord Micarta, definitely a good possibility. Definitely a worthwhile project to make something very unique and kind of one of a kind. So there it is, successful test, nice product in the end. Thanks for watching, guys, as always, and I'll be back real soon.